Hello and welcome to Friday's ESPN FC Live. I so want to call it Celebrity Squares. Mark Donaldson, Janusz Michallik, Shaka Hislop, Miguel, Echegaray. We've got the brains with us. A degree in mechanical engineering from Howard University and an ex-intern at NASA. That's just Janusz Michallik. What about you, Shaka?
I was going to say you can stop at that. Don't go any further.
We have the brains. Who wants to be the brawn? LME or Janusz? That's all that's left for us today. LME's putting his hand up, but he's pointing at Janusz. We're going to have a bit of fun today when Janusz switches off his mobile phone because we don't want a call from his wife halfway through to say what's going on.
Emails I'm getting from you.
Well, yeah, there's a silence. See, there's a thing that's silent. You can silence them off for the next half hour. Welcome. We're going to have a bit of fun over the next half hour. We're going to be talking Messi and Suarez and maybe joined by their pal, someone else who completed a 3-year period at Barcelona between 2014 and 2017, Luis Suarez. We'll be talking about transfer swaps as well and ask the panel. This could be anything. We have some questions all related to football. That's all still to come, but we're going to start with LME, because when you've got someone here who is an author, who's written a book about Lionel Messi that's out soon, and may have the inside track on what's going to happen when Neymar's contract with Al Hilal expires. Can we see the MSN trio, which was at Barca for 3 years, more than a decade ago, up themselves, come back and form again in Miami coming the summertime? LME, what can you tell us regarding this?
Well, Mark Donaldson, first of all, let me thank you so much for being my agent, promoting my book every now and again. I really appreciate it. Venmo coming your way anytime soon. All right, let me be as concise as I can with this situation, because it is tricky and it does need context for those of us. For those that are watching our show. MLS obviously has salary restrictions and all of that good stuff. So let's play the could he, would he? Would Neymar Jr. join Inter Miami? Could he do it? As you mentioned, Neymar Jr. ends his contract with Al Hilal unless there's negotiations this summer, of course. He has talked about Neymar Jr., about how much he wants to play again with Lucho Suarez and Lionel Messi when they were MSN in Barcelona. He loves MLS. He loves America. He loves Miami. Just last October, he bought a $26 million home in Bal Harbour, which is north of North Beach in Miami. So, there's all of that good stuff. He loves the city. He loves the team. He loves it all. Here's the issue, and it's massive, of course, as Javier Mascherano said it a few days ago. It's almost impossible for this to happen just because of the salary restrictions, even though the managing owner, Jorge Mas, also wants it to happen, and the club itself has a good, almost unlimited budget. But the issue here is that there are salary restrictions within MLS. One of them specifically is, of course, that you need to have a certain amount of players, designated players, that can go beyond the salary restrictions. Inter Miami have 2 of them, Lionel Messi and Sergio Busquets. They don't have 3. Leo Campana, who's not a designated player, he's already left for the Revolution. Diego Gomez, who's an under-22 player, he's gone to Brighton. Matias Rojas, he's gone to River Plate. So there is some space, but the issue is going to be, can you attract Neymar, who makes about $107 million a year in his annual salary with Al Hilal, who, by the way, has only played 7 matches with them due to injury? Can you persuade him to come and say, can you play for a little bit less of money, which is what Lucho Suarez is doing? So all of these issues are intertwined within each other. It's not impossible, but it's incredibly, incredibly difficult. Should he do it? That's another question.
All right, Shaka Hislop, let's rewind the clock back 10 years. Barcelona was appointment viewing. They won the Champions League in 2014-2015. Lionel Messi, Neymar were joint top scorers with 10. Luis Suarez had 7 goals. But here's the caveat. Messi was 27. So was Suarez at the start of that season. And Neymar was 22. Are they appointment viewing now at the ages of 32, 37, and 37 as we speak? 33 next month, Neymar, 38 in June, Messi, and 38 in 2 weeks for Luis Suarez? Or is this just becoming silly and becoming like the Harlem Globetrotters?
Can it be both? To your question, Mark, it's appointment viewing in Major League Soccer, who you don't have the exposure to those types of talents at any stage. And while we are talking an aging trio, at their best, they were three of the best to have ever played the game. That's attractive. That's attractive commercially from a fan perspective. You saw the furor that Lionel Messi continues to command, even though, and yes, Lionel Messi continues to be almost superhuman, but he's a lesser version of himself at his absolute best. Now, if that were any kind of indication, then absolutely yes. I wouldn't mind seeing all three of them on the park together in person and live, but knowing full well that they aren't the players that they once were. The bigger question is, and you've seen, while Lionel Messi continues to be this incredible talent, even at his age, Luis Suarez isn't the player that he once was. Injuries, he's slowed down considerably, and while yes, he's still a valuable asset to Inter Miami, you have same questions about Neymar. You want to see him in person, you want to see him in the flesh, even though you understand and accept that this is a lesser version of himself. But you've seen nothing of him since just about nothing of him since his ACL injury soon after moving to Saudi Arabia. So what are you getting? While you may be there, you'll queue up, you'll pay over the prices for a ticket. You're not. There's no guarantee as to what you're seeing from his perspective. So commercially, it makes sense. But in all honesty, other than the kind of initial impact of I was there, I saw all three of them in person, I'm not sure what the value truly is.
I like the fact you've taken both sides of the story, because there are two sides to the story here. The concern would be if you've seen them once, then like the Harlem Globetrotters, is that enough? However, we had our very own version back in 1977 of the footballing equivalent of the Harlem Globetrotters, which was the New York Cosmos. Now, Pele was the same age. He was 37 back then. Franz Beckenbauer was 32 and Carlos Alberto was 33. Here's the caveat, Janusz. They won the championship in 1977 and 1978. If it was Messi arriving, or if it was Luis Suarez arriving, who are nearer 40 than 30, then I don't know, you could look at Inter Miami and say, how much is that actually going to help them at their age from winning the title? But Neymar's still in his early 30s here. So is his addition, if they're able to do it into Miami, going to help them finally win the MLS Cup?
Well, as the boy said, if he's healthy, absolutely. Let's not forget, I mean, they were the best team during the regular season, right? I mean, they lost out to Columbus Crew, my Columbus Crew, who were actually the defending champions. So no shame in that. That could have happened because Columbus Crew is a very good team. In terms of injuries, that's the only question I have. Otherwise, it's a no-brainer for Major League Soccer. And Shaka is spot on. I mean, Major League Soccer needs as much exposure as they can possibly get. No questions about that. The injuries, I mean, the whole of 2024, he played 42 minutes. That's 2 matches. That's questionable. His skills aren't questionable. If he's healthy, there's no way that they're going to pay Al Hilal, paid him, by the way, for those 42 minutes, 100 million euros. That's not going to happen again. I think he sees what's coming his way. Reunion with Lionel Messi and Suarez is tempting. I can assure that. It's probably not going to be for the money, and he's going to get his money. And LME, you mentioned that it's going to be difficult for Major League Soccer because of the rules. I remember when David Beckham came into the league, there was a Beckham rule, right? David Beckham is at Inter Miami, and he's going to create another rule if it fits, the narrative of Major League Soccer. So I have zero issues with that because somehow I think it's going to happen. But I think all the other points are valid. This is not going to be the same trio that we saw at Barcelona. But if it even comes close to that, I remember Neymar was wonderful with Messi. He wasn't scoring maybe as many goals, but he certainly created so many goals for Leo Messi, gave him many assists. And as I've said, in this league, I think this would be big.
Can I just add here, Mark?
Yeah, sure.
I'm also old enough to remember that in the earliest days of Major League Soccer, the messaging was that they weren't going to repeat the mistakes of the NASL. So for you to mention Cosmos in the late 70s, I think carries some resonance here in the story that we're trying to tell. And while maybe the counter argument could be that MLS has now matured to the point where they can take some of these bigger money gambles, then fine. I guess they've earned that right to do that in a manageable way. I'm also, LME is keen to point out that MLS has salary restrictions. And now, I guess I need to be blessed with a mechanical engineering degree and a summer internship in NASA, like Janusz, to try to understand how those salary restrictions affect or don't. Inter Miami, who have Lionel Messi, Luis Suarez, Sergio Busquets, Jordi Alba. How does that work in Miami, but still not work or whatever it is for a Kansas City or Columbus or Cincinnati? It's for me, looking in from the outside, it's just far too confusing.
LME, I want to give you the final word on this before we move on. If they're able to get this done, okay, it would be a wonderful signing for MLS. If you were getting the Neymar of his 20s and he was back fit and everything like that. However, there's a lot of red flags about this. His age, his lack of game time, whether or not he'll ever recover fully from the injuries that he's had. Do you think it would make more sense to spend all that money to try and get Neymar, to make Messi and Suarez happy, or to spend the same amount of money, whatever that money is, and it's probably quite a lot, to get pretty much a really good player who's young and can maybe be the face of the franchise for the next decade?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking that, because that's really the important part here to wrap this up. In my answer, I'll try and answer as well what the boys were talking about, who bring up some very, very good points, especially the marketing appeal of Neymar. And that's why I said it's very difficult, but not impossible. To answer very quickly Shaka's question about the salary restrictions, with Inter Miami, MLS have like a few options. You can either have 3 designated players and 2 under 22 initiative players, or you can have 2 designated players and more under 22 players. And that's what Inter Miami do. They only have 2, Sergio Busquets and Lionel Messi. As I mentioned, Lucho Suarez actually is not a designated player. He actually said, it's okay, you can pay me less. So, there's some issues there in terms of under 22 players. So there's that situation. In terms of your question, Neymar going to Inter Miami, in my opinion, if Inter Miami want to win MLS Cup, they shouldn't bring him, because there's way more of a need in other areas. They just brought in, coming into Lasco Segovia, a very good Venezuelan player, young player coming from Casa Pia, which is Ruben Amorim's first club as a manager. He's coming in. They're solidifying that midfield. They've got Fede Redondo as well. They're going to bring in. They need to look at the model of the previous winners of MLS Cup. LA Galaxy is a great example. It wasn't just about Ricky Puig. It's such a shame that he couldn't make the final. It was about players that they got in from Latin America and beyond, and they had a very good, experienced center back. Columbus Crew, exactly the same thing in 2023. So in my opinion, you got to begin with the spine. You need a good center back. You need somebody that can lead you, because Inter Miami don't have that. They have Thomas Aviles, who's talented and young, but they don't have a voice at the back. I think that's their number 1 priority. Then after that, you can try and solidify. But if Inter Miami want to sell shirts, sell kit, get people to come from all over the globe and watch Messi and MSN, and go for it. But if you want to win MLS Cup, you need way more than just Neymar Jr.
Okay, let's move on to potential swap deals. Now, Shaka, this is something that doesn't happen very often in football, but I wish it would happen more often, because I don't know how many players in the Premier League right now are out of favour. I just watched a press conference earlier today, Enzo Maresca talking about Ben Chilwell, someone who's probably not going to feature for Chelsea much under him. And it makes me think, look, there's a lot of players that are surplus to requirements that would love game time somewhere else and are still valuable, having been in contract and continue to be in contract. Why do you think we don't see as many swap deals as maybe we should, when it makes a lot more sense than perhaps others give it credit for?
Well, for a couple of reasons. One, there's always this discrepancy in valuations between the
Sure.
two clubs, the club that's selling, the club that's buying. Nobody could ever seem to agree. Of course, if you're buying, I mean, football is no different. You try to buy as cheaply as you possibly can. When you're selling, you try to get as much value for that player as you can. And inevitably, there's this kind of friction between the two. Nobody could necessarily agree. Maybe there isn't an immediate need for that swap, given the positions, kind of building on what LME was just talking about, and into Miami building their squads. The exact same applies regardless of who we're talking about, where they're playing their football. So there's always that, and maybe you need to get a third and possibly even a fourth party involved, which you kind of saw this in the summer with Chelsea and Manchester United and Arsenal, with Sterling and Sancho, and a lot of different moving parts. So it's never quite that simple. And also, and you've seen this kind of play out a lot over the last few years, especially with the profit and sustainability rules and the accounting practices, and how that kind of manifests itself. From a selling club, if I sell a player for 20 million, let's just use that number arbitrarily, I can put that 20 million on my books straight away. If I'm buying a player for 20 million and I put him on a 4-year deal, I can spread it out as 5 million, 5 million, 5 million, 5 million. So in the short term, at the very least, it frees up 15 million of negotiating space financially. And that has become a big issue, especially when we talk about, when you look at Everton and Nottingham Forest of last season, and their points deductions. We're still talking about Manchester City, as we have been for the last 3 or 4 years. That has become an issue. And you saw that play out in real time with Newcastle United over the summer, and them having to move players on. And so it all becomes this big accounting swirl that, again, maybe Janusz with his degrees and experience can better explain than me. But I am just, once again, I'm going to just sit on the outside and just leave it to the experts.
Okay, Janusz.
Shaka, you know the answer. It's far more cynical. It's the agents. You know, until they figure it out, how are you going to make money, right? On a swap like this, it's difficult. I know it's happening in this country. I don't necessarily know how the agents get paid, but as you know, clubs are trying to get away from paying the agents themselves. In some cases, they don't even do it anymore. But in general, if you're a big agent, I'm not sure if this is the way to go for you. So I think I really do think that that's one of the major, if not the only reason at this stage. And unless we're going to see a situation where this is spelled out, which I'm not sure, once again, that agents want to have very, very clear rules, right? Because it's the best to work behind the scenes, and very often we don't really, not very often, we don't know how much money these agents make, other than it's not. So that's the only answer I have, because everything else you've explained very, very well.
See, that's all real life, and that's all a bit too sensible. For half an hour on ESPN FC Live, we can delve into why did that happen, this must happen, and whatever, and it's got no chance of ever doing so, but the four of us together can make things happen. Now, this is on the back of an article that's appeared at ESPN.com, and it's about transfer swaps that we would like to see. And just in the last few days, LME, Dusan Vlahovic, has been linked with a swap deal for Joshua Zirkzee at Manchester United. And you kind of think, well, if that happened, United surely bite your hand off for that. Then you've got Douglas Luiz at Juve for Zirkzee or someone else. Putting aside all the sense that Janusz has spoken with his degree, and also Shaka, who maybe once went to Howard University as well, what would be some of the swap deals that you think would make sense, regardless of agents putting their foot in it and trying to stop this nonsense from happening?
Well, the one that you said is interesting. I think that Joshua Zirkzee is probably, reportedly, he's thinking about his options as well. And because he had such a great time in Serie A, specifically with Bologna, he could maybe look at returning to Serie A. I like the idea of Dusan Vlahovic and Manchester United. That would be wonderful to see. So, if you're giving me options to choose, I guess that's one of them. Reluctantly, Douglas Luiz to Manchester United could work as an Aston Villa fan, but we can talk about that later. I saw the Nkunku one. with Kolo Muani. I guess that's better. I guess that's better for Kolo Muani just because it's not really working out for PSG. And Nkunku maybe because he's a Paris guy as well. But I don't know. I'm with the boys here. The problem is that every player has an asset, has a valuation of their own selves as well as the agencies. In fact, speaking of Douglas Luiz, this past summer, this is exactly what happened between Villa and Juventus, right? Juventus wanted Douglas Luiz. They offered some money plus some players, including Weston McKennie. Villa actually said yes to this. McKennie rejected it. He wanted to stay at Juventus, so they had to play around it and choose some other player. So it can work. It's just that unlike the NBA or an MLB, where trading is part of the culture, you're not just like swapping the player. You're swapping the contract, and that's the most important thing. But to answer your question, I think something like Joshua Zirkzee swapping with somebody like Dusan Vlahovic would be kind of interesting.
Okay, we're going to end today for the last 10 minutes or so with basically asking the panel. I've got 8 questions. Each will take 2 of these questions. I'll decide which 2 each person gets, but if anybody has a strong opinion on either the question or the answer given by the designated answerer, then feel free to jump in. I want to start with you, Janusz. What do you think might be the biggest storyline in football of 2025?
Ooh.
I don't know. Club World Cup will actually be successful. And I don't have an explanation for it, why it will be, because everybody's so against it, right? But I mean, it's just, it's always that way. And look, when anything like that starts at first, it's always difficult. We have to remember some of the big clubs aren't in it because of the system of how you qualify. Rest assured that Liverpool's, Barcelona, whoever's not in, eventually are going to be there. But I think this is going to be eventually a big event.
Okay, that's the 3 seconds up, and there's no one willing to go near what Janusz has said. So we move on to the next one. Shaka. Mohamed Salah. Look, the question here is he'll either leave or he'll stay at Liverpool. I want to change that slightly because most people have had their say on this one. When will Mohamed Salah's future be decided? When will the contract be signed, or when will the nope, I'm leaving be announced?
April 27th. That's what I'm going for.
Hold up a second.
Listen, I felt that I'm struggling to see Mo Salah in a shirt other than a Liverpool shirt. And I'll be honest, I said the same thing about Lionel Messi with Barcelona, and he within days moved to PSG. But I felt that there was a greater chance. What was it, 2 years ago now, or was it last time? I can't even remember. Of Mo Salah moving to Saudi Arabia when that initial contact had come. He'd kind of fallen out with Jurgen Klopp. He said a few things, either to the press or one that kind of jumps out at me is in the mix zone after one game that I thought really spelled the end of Mo Salah at Liverpool. That wasn't to be. The team are playing wonderfully well right now, and so I feel there's a less chance this time around than there was 12 months ago. And so I think both club and player continues to posture. The club will continue to work behind the scenes to make sure that Mo Salah signs for another year or whatever it may be. So I expect that announcement to be made, not in the next few weeks, but certainly before the end of the season. April 27th falls perfectly.
That's a Sunday. Liverpool might play that day because they've got Spurs, and that's likely to be moved for TV. So we interrupt this broadcast with breaking news that Mohamed Salah, as predicted by Shaka Hislop in January, has indeed extended his stay at Liverpool. That's one for the ESPN FC diary. Next one, LME. You had possibly the worst take I have ever heard with Ruben Amorim's start to his Manchester United campaign. You basically said he's going to win everything. Club World Cup, Figure Skating World Championship, and men's 100 meters at the Olympics. He did.
Don't forget a Golden Globe.
So you can have this one. I think I know what the answer is going to be. In his time at Old Trafford, Ruben Amorim will win silverware with Manchester United.
Yes. Now, what silverware that is and when, I don't know. But I see him winning something. It could be a Conference League trophy. It could be maybe something like the League's Cup in the future. Look, yes, I put my hand up. I absolutely got that wrong big time. But the sentiment remains, though. I do still believe that Ruben Amorim is the man for this job. It's just that the mountain is Everest. And he really has to take time in making sure that this project works out. And that's going to take longer than weeks, months. We have talked about this in the show over and over again. So I do see him winning silverware. Yes, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. But I think he is the man for the job, and he's the right person to do it. Everything that he has said in press conferences to me speaks of the man who make this happen. I just think it's going to take some time.
Right, we have one or two audio issues which we will resolve to resolve. Next one for Janusz. How about this one? Cristiano Ronaldo will end his playing career in Europe.
I could see that, but not if he wants to score the 1,000 goals. You know, if he wants to score the 1,000 goals in his career, I'd stay in Saudi Arabia. I'm sure he's going to get there by next season. I'm not even sure how many he has, but I'm a romantic. I think that it could happen. I'd love to see him coming back to Sporting, where it all started. I've said that about Messi. Still, I don't know, if he's ever going to come back to Barcelona, but if there's a way, I would love to see that as well, even if it's just for a short period of time. So. Look, I mean, you have to cater to him. You have to build your team in a specific way. We saw that even at his, when he was at his best before he went to Saudi Arabia. So that's not an easy one. But here we are talking always about these number nines and teams missing number nines. Arsenal, no, by the way, I'm not saying that Arsenal should get him, but there's a number of teams that could use a player like him. So my answer to that is yes. When it's all said and done, he's going to finish his career in Europe.
Shaka Hislop, next question for you. Someone who was in the England squad to face Chile back in the day, but never got on the pitch at Wembley. So I'll ask you about the England manager, Thomas Tuchel. Will he struggle to do what he did as a club coach with the rigors, if that's what you want to call them, of international football?
Well, it's a different ask, an international coach from a club coach. But I see no reason to suggest that Thomas Tuchel will struggle. He showed himself to be a very good coach, very accomplished coach. Again, yes, that's at club level, and it's a very different ask. You've also seen England perform, to their credit, well in international tournaments under Gareth Southgate. Okay, they've been far too pragmatic, particularly for the England fans, but they've shown that they're a team that can win games, that they have talent in every single position. All those ingredients put together, I see no reason to suggest that Thomas Tuchel will struggle.
LME Carlo Ancelotti, a kind of a two-part question here. One, is this his last season with Real Madrid? And two, can you see the Brazil national team job in his future?
Oof, this is a good one. I think it depends if he wins La Liga or the Champions League, to be honest. Florentino Perez acts on recent bias and trophies, despite the fact that he's the most successful manager in terms of trophies of Real Madrid history. So there's one aspect there. I think Brazil continue to be an identity-less driven project right now. And even though they're so stubborn and hesitant about hiring a Brazilian to do the job, they have to look outside of the box. And Ancelotti, as you mentioned, remains somebody like that. I will throw in something else, by the way. Xabi Alonso has a reported release clause or a gentleman's agreement with Bayer Leverkusen beginning the summer of 2025, where with three clubs, we don't know the clubs, but we can definitely guess, and one of them being Real Madrid, if they come in for him, that Bayer Leverkusen will not get in his way. So there is that situation. To me, it's about if Ancelotti wins something major, Champions League or La Liga, I think he stays. If he doesn't, I think the door opens for many. But I would love to see Ancelotti manage the Brazilian team. I would love Carlo Ancelotti in CONMEBOL World Cup qualifiers. It would be amazing, popcorn-driven cinema.
Yeah, just wait till he has to go to Ecuador for a
Can I ask?
kick off on a midweek Wednesday. Yes, Jack.
Is Carlo Ancelotti not the most likable coach in world football?
100%.
I have nothing to add other than I love Carlo Ancelotti. I really do. I just wanted to. If you're watching Carlo, I just wanted you to know. Yeah, you never know. Carlo might be flipping open his Lionel Messi LME book and thought, let me tell you guys. There you go.
Preach,
Carlo.
Shaka, preach.
But Shaq, you're the most beloved member of the ESPN FC team, so
That's also true.
Yeah, being nice can have a part to play in this world as well, you know.
Let's get Carlo on ESPN FC one of these days.
This, I'm sure he'll jump on. Next, Janusz, as we wrap this up, we've got two more. This is the penultimate question. Erling Haaland's next club, whenever he leaves Manchester City, will be in Spain.
Well, there's only a couple clubs. It has to be. Yeah, it may be. But where are you going? Barcelona or Real Madrid? Barcelona for Lewandowski makes more sense. For some reason, I know that all the talk has been about him and Real Madrid, or the links even before he came to Manchester City. I don't see it for some reason. You know what? You know how I feel about Erling Haaland. You know, in order to go to Barcelona or Real Madrid, you have to play football. Scoring goals is just not enough. And, you know, I've never felt that he's the sort of, he's limited in some way. I'm going to keep my line because I'm the only one, at least here on these shows, that always goes against Erling Haaland, even though I have tons of respect for what he does. And certainly, as we see even now at Manchester City, when they struggle, when there's no service, he doesn't score as much. I've always felt he was limited. That's not his fault. This is the way he plays. This is the way he played at Borussia Dortmund as well. So, it can happen because there's 3 or 4 clubs that can probably afford him. So he may end up there, but I don't know if he's the answer either for Barcelona or Real Madrid in that position.
I can see Real Madrid all day long. If you can figure out, and let's assume all things stay even, if you can figure out Vinicius and Kylian Mbappe right and left, and nobody's been able, even our beloved Carlo Ancelotti has been able to figure that out just yet. Can you imagine those two functioning well, one wing, the other wing, and Erling Haaland through the middle? Oh, that's
if you can figure that out, then the answer is yes.
Yeah,
who's going to track back? Who's going to defend?
Yeah,
defend and track back.
Judy's going to track everybody. Judy's tracking everybody.
Okay. Finally, I just need a yes or no for this last question. Will Nottingham Forest be playing in the Champions League next season? LME.
Oh, I want to say yes. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to be the romantic here. I love what they're doing. Yes.
Okay, that's 13 words. Janusz.
Yes, because they're going to get 5 spots, not 4, right? So I'm going to 4. I would have said no. 5, I'm going to say yes. Why not? Big, massive club that I remember. Not that I want to age myself in their glory days.
See, a couple of things here. One, I'm with you because I should have prefaced it with the likelihood is England will have 5 spots. 2, thank you for adding that, even though you were only asked for 1 word. But then when you say I remembered, we didn't need that. That was too much. Shaka, yes or no?
No.
Oh, Shaka.
Listen, Newcastle. I'm back.
Oh, of course. I forgot about that. that.
See, so I was sticking to one word. I tried to stick to one word, Mark.
I know.
No. That went out the window.
Let me pride it out to me.
That went out the window. MD, I'll just say this, MD, very quickly. They have 18 games. They have 18 matches left in the league. 10 of them are against teams in the top 10. But their record this season against any of them, home or away, has been remarkable. They don't just rely on one person. They're a collective. We got to go for it. I'm a big fan of Nottingham Forest this season.
Liverpool, Man City, Arsenal, top 3 will add Newcastle and make Forest 5th. How's that?
Quite a few angry people there.
You're giving Man City one? No.
Well, absolutely. They're going to be in the Champions League. No problem.
By the way, I know that said that was the last question, and producer Rob's like, come on, just shut up. I've got one more for each of you, okay? A Scotsman here is going to give you all a blank check, right? Which means you can buy one of 2 players, but you're only allowed to buy one.
There's all kind of issues with that. A Scotsman giving you a blank check.
I know.
I know better than that already.
Do we buy or do we swap?
Well, no, here's the question, right? You can buy one of these two players with my blank check. Erling Haaland right now or Alexander Isak? Shaka.
Erling Haaland.
LME.
Isak.
Janusz.
Haaland.
Isak, for me, it's a tie. Join us next week and we can resolve this with a winner after extra time and penalties. Bye for now.